Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make custom mats for your Silhouette Curio. Overall, I'm warming up to my Silhouette Curio machine, but boy do I hate those cutting mats. They just aren't tough enough to handle the test cutting and mishaps that are inherent with this machine, and they're expensive to replace. But the good news is it's easy to make your own Curio mats, including specialty mats custom tailored for your specific projects. So let me show you how to make a Curio mat. It's really easier to do than it is to explain. We'll start with a basic replacement mat. The first thing you need to do is round up some hole punches, starting with a 1/4 inch circle punch. This dimension is important, but don't worry, this is the standard US hole puncher, so they are inexpensive and easy to find. If you have a heavy-duty 1/4 inch punch like the Crocodile Power Punch, then that's even better. To punch the smaller holes, you'll need a 3/16 inch or 4mm punch. While not the standard size, you can buy them in the office style or craft punch configuration from Amazon or perhaps your local craft store. The original or Big Bite Crocodile have a 3/16 inch punch on one side, so that's perfect if you have one of those. Or you might be able to find something in the family toolbox you can use, like a grommet setter or leather punch. In a pinch, you could even cut the small holes out with an X-Acto knife, because accuracy isn't quite as important as for the larger holes. I realize you're a die cutter person, and this hole puncher and trimmer thing may seem primitive and imprecise. Don't worry, I've got you covered with a free cut file you can use to cut your custom mats for the Curio using your Cameo machine. To make replacement cutting mats, I recommend using the toughest material you can punch or cut, and plastic is always a good choice. Here's a general guide to what you can punch with which tools, but you'll want to do your own testing. I've always used the flexible kitchen cutting mats from Dollar Tree to make my replacement mats, but the ones I picked up last week were thicker and I couldn't punch all the way through with my hole puncher. These are just a few ideas. Look around to see what you have in your stash, or even in your trash. It's a little easier to trim the media to size before marking it, so go ahead and cut it down to 10 1/16 inch by 7 5/16 inch. It doesn't have to be super exact, and you can use whatever you have that will cut the media that you've chosen. Next, we're going to use an original Curio mat as a stencil to mark our cut media. Square up the upper left corner of your media with the larger circle of your Curio mat and hold securely. Then clamp them in place with a binder clip so they can't slip. To do the tracing, a pen or pencil with a long thin tip will work best. And don't forget, it will need to work on your plastic. Try to get as straight over the holes as possible instead of tracing at an angle. You want to lay the mats flat, so you might have to let the binder clip hang off the edge of your table as you work around it to trace the circles onto your media. Unclamp the mat, remove it, and use the marks to punch the upper left hole with a 1/4 inch hole punch. You want to line up the punch with your marks carefully. If your punch has a cover on it that blocks your view, you'll want to remove it. Follow the same process to punch the hole at the upper right. Since this hole is elongated, it will take 2 punches. Punch once in the center with the 1/4 inch punch. Then punch again slightly to the left or right to nibble out the shape. Use the smaller 3/16 inch punch to punch the remaining 4 holes using the same basic process. I know this is a simple, familiar process, but I spent time on it because punching accurately will give you reliably accurate mats. So let's see how you did. Go ahead and test the mat on your bare platform to be sure it fits on all the posts and can lie completely flat without too much play. Depending on the direction of any error, you might be able to repunch to fix it. Since we're making a standard replacement mat, our next step is to draw the grid. But don't worry, our Curio is going to do that for us. Not only does that save us time and effort, but it ensures that the grid is perfectly matched to the Curio. I'm providing a free studio file on my blog for the standard 1-inch grid. Open it, load the appropriate platforms for drawing, place your homemade mat on top, and draw. Of course, you'll need a pen suitable for your media, which may mean you need a pen holder of some kind. And it's important that the pen is perfectly centered in the holder in this case. I use a Sharpie with a 3D printed holder from Flywheel IT on Etsy, but stay tuned because I have an idea if you only have Silhouette pens. Lastly, you'll add the adhesive layer to your mat. You can use liquid or spray-on adhesive and use tape or cardstock mask to apply adhesive neatly to the gridded area. For my replacement mats, I tape off the edges with painter's tape and run it through my 9-inch wide Xyron. So peel off the tape and your replacement mat is ready for action. Keep in mind that the mat thickness is part of the platform stack that determines the settings, and your mat will not be the same thickness as the original. So you can either add shims or adjust your settings. Make a cover for your mat with the backing from vinyl, parchment paper, or similar non-stick material. I know some of you are wondering if using your own homemade mats will void your warranty. While there's not a specific prohibition to using third-party accessories, it's not 100% clear. What is spelled out, however, is that commercial use voids the warranty, so most of you are probably already out of warranty protection anyway. If not, you can always wait until your Curio is a year old. So I've used a simple replacement mat to show you the basics, but that's just the start. By switching up the media, marking, and adhesive choices, you can create the mat that's perfect for your project. Adding cutouts to the mats and layering them in creative ways increase the possibilities even further. There are many kinds of media you can choose to make a mat. We've already talked about various plastics. Chipboard, poster board, foam, metal, cork are all other ideas. You're only limited by your ability to cut and punch the material. And of course, you aren't limited to the standard 1-inch grid when marking your mat. How about a metric grid or other custom grid or a layout specific to the blanks you're using? Here are a few examples: a 1/2-inch grid, a centimeter grid, and a custom pattern for 1.5-inch circular blanks. When it comes to adhesives, you can choose the level of tack you need, mask off more or less of the mat, or leave off the adhesive altogether for working with food, clay, or media that are adhesive on their own, like Post-it notes. And you can get creative with your attachment methods. You aren't limited to glues. Magnets and photo corners are a couple of other ideas. I know a lot of you enjoy etching with your curios, so let's talk about how we can take this process a step further and create a jig made just for your blanks. Instead of drawing custom guides on your mat, simply cut them out instead. Silhouette chipboard works really well for this because you want something thick and durable but still be able to cut with the Curio. Make sure you keep the cutting file you use for your jig, because with it, your jig is completely reusable. All you need to do is make sure the outlines of the blanks or guides are not activated and that they don't move. The same goes if you draw outlines for your blanks. And here's a tip: if you have Designer Edition, you can lock them on their own layer. Don't worry, I'm planning a more detailed tutorial on designing and using a jig in case you don't know how to do that. Here are screenshots for a few concepts: a jig for etching guitar picks, a slotted mat for writing on ribbon, and a slotted mat for writing on coffee sleeves. I say concepts because I haven't tried these particular ones. Think about what you're doing when we make mats and jigs this way. Because our guidelines or cutouts are drawn with the Curio and our mats are positioned with the indexing posts, we can get very good registration every time without counting squares or using Picscan. Finally, layering your various custom mats in a stack with a transparent top or as shims gives you even more options. Here's a couple of examples. If you're building a jig, you can stack several cutout layers for extra thickness and security with a solid layer on the bottom that has just the right adhesive for your blanks. If you use a top layer that's transparent, you can place a marked paper layer underneath it. This allows you to mix and match different marking layers and also allows you to do the marking with silhouette pens if you don't have the pen and holder arrangement needed to draw directly on plastic. You can add layers to your custom mats to reach the thickness of the Silhouette brand mats, or you can create thinner shims to use with any mat. This lets you intentionally change the total stack thickness in smaller increments than the 1mm steps, which are all you get with the original Curio platform set. So that was a lot of information about a pretty simple idea. I hope that knowing how to easily build your own mats and jigs will help you complete your Curio projects more efficiently and accurately, and maybe you'll get ideas for new projects you wouldn't have thought of before. So as always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you aren't following my Clever Someday YouTube channel or blog at cleversomeday.com, I'd sure appreciate it if you did. If you create something cool with these techniques, I'd love to hear about it. You can reach me using the comment form at cleversomeday.com.